We are continuing to work with the arrays assignment number 3, where we have to resize the array and then add in some additional values. And I've made some changes in the code. A couple of things that I did was when we're passing elements back and forth, it's probably not the best idea to use the variable list because there's a reserved word for list, I believe, somewhere. So I changed that to, I think, just a variable nums. And I kept list size, etc. So if you're looking at the previous videos versus this video, you might notice a few different variable names that have changed. And so we are going to work on how do you, if you take a look at the code that's generated on the right-hand side, if the array needs to be resized. In other words, if the size is not large enough to handle the additional 30 numbers, if it's less than 30, less than 80, then the array needs to be resized. So I put the original number size up here was 68, so that one would have to be resized just to kind of show you. This one did not have to be resized, and so you can see it has the original array and then the array printed again after potential resizing. And there is a little prompt here. I like to use echo checks, which is just outputting things to the screen, and so list repeated, it may be resized. If it does need to be resized, I put in this resizing. So the resizing is what I'm going to talk about in this particular video. So a couple of things. First of all, I don't know if we talked about it in the previous video or not about the array copy. And so I'm going to go back up. You need to import java.util.arrays if you use array copy. What array copy will do is it takes, and instead of having to copy element by element by element, it will copy one array into another. So you have your target array, and then you have actually, if I take a look, which array was created first was nums. So nums was the original, and then the target here is original. And the reason I did that is I wanted to keep an original copy. And so it might be a better name to maybe make this or name this original copy. So then we know that what we're doing is keeping a copy of the original, and I did that on purpose just to kind of keep it around in case I needed to work with it. And so the way that array copy works is you have the original, the beginning array. You're starting at index 0. I want it to go into the original copy array starting at index 0, and we're going to copy all elements through list size. And so basically it just makes a copy of the array. And then I'm going to take that array then, and I'm going to resize it. Now I need to show you here, pay attention to the fact that I am not going to, I'm returning an array is what's going to happen. If I scroll down here, there's two ways to create a copy of an array. And so I've got one of them commented out. One is to create a new integer array with a length double its size. That's the typical algorithm for resizing. If you need to resize, just double the size of the array. And so in order to do that, you can use a loop to the and the list.length to copy the values from one into a larger array. And you do that line by line. Option 2 is that we will import the java.util arrays, and we will use arrays copy of. And that's the version that you see here. And so what I did inside the method, let me scroll back up. When I called resize, I sent it nums, and nums is our original array over here, nums, and we sent that in. But please notice that I'm assigning it to something. So what am I sending back? If I look at my method, I'm sending back an integer array. So I'm accepting an integer array, and I called it my source array locally. And then down here in the code, I created a brand new array, and I just called it larger array. I used array copy, and this is a different version of array copy, and it's just going to take the source array and it's going to go 2 times the source array.length. So this is a different, not a different version. Let me scroll back up. This is array copy lowercase. Down here we have arrays.copyOf, which is another method in that java.util.arrays. So I'm making it a copy of the source array with twice its length. And then I'm going to print that it was resized. and then to whatever the new length is. That's this over here, the 132, for example, and then a couple return statements, and then I return the larger array. So this returns an integer array, and it assigns it to our nums array. Now, I tried to use a pass by reference here, but it did not work. And the reason that it did not work is because I'm actually creating a new array locally and then working with that. There's more details to that, but just to let you know that this needed to return the integer array and assign it back to our nums array that we were working with. This is one way that you can resize the array. The other way to resize the array, if we kind of try to work through that a little bit quickly, and I'm still going to return larger array, is that you're going to create a new integer array that has a length of list length times 2. And so that would look something like the following. I would do, I'm actually going to borrow, well, int bracket larger array equals new int, and then when I create the array, I got to get my, it's just bracket, and then the size is going to be list, well, it's my source array dot length times 2 is what I am wanting. Then we literally copy into the larger array, or we have to have a loop. And we could use a for loop that we would have to track a separate index, so I might as well just create a loop, and we're going to have the index start at 0, and we are going to go until the source array dot length, and then we are going to increment by 1 at a time. And what we're going to do is just literally copy one at a time from one array into the other. So the larger array bracket index is going to be assigned the source array bracket index. And that should do the same type of copying. So we resized, we created a larger array, double the size, and then we're just going to line by line by line, we're going to copy it over. So this theoretically should work the same. If we take and execute it, it resized, and I do not have, or I did not have my resized array comment in here. So we put that comment back in so that we can see what the size of the new array was in both sections, etc. And so execute. So if my original array is 80 or less, then I'm going to have to resize. And so you can look and see that this is resizing, and it is resizing and copying over all the elements. So that's another way to make an array copy. The key here is that you return that larger array. And so you've got two options there for doing your resizing. So you can choose whichever option that you want. And the next video will talk us through how to actually insert the new elements.